The distress call. In the vast expanse of the Orion Arm, the Zephyrians had long been known as a race of peaceful explorers and brilliant scientists. Their homeworld, Zephyria, was a haven of technological marvels and natural wonders. For millennia, they had reached out to the stars, seeking knowledge and friendship among the cosmos. But on that fateful day, their idyllic existence shattered. The skies above Zephyria darkened as a massive fleet of unknown origin dropped out of hyperspace. Within moments, the planet's defensive grid lit up with warnings, and panicked voices filled the communication channels. The Zephyrian High Council, unused to conflict, struggled to comprehend the unfolding catastrophe. First Counselor Alara, her iridescent scales shimmering with stress, addressed her people. Citizens of Zephyria, an unknown force has entered our system with hostile intent. We are unprepared for this. Our defenses will not hold. Her voice trembled but held firm. We must call for aid. As the first salvos from the invading fleet struck Zephyria's orbital stations, turning them into expanding clouds of debris, the Zephyrians activated their deep space distress beacon. The signal, carrying their desperate plea for help, raced across the galaxy at speeds beyond light. To any who can hear us, Alara's voice rang out. We are the Zephyrians. Our world is under attack by an unknown aggressor. We are a peaceful people. We have no means to defend ourselves. Please, if there is any mercy in the cosmos, send help. The message repeated, echoing through the void as the Zephyrians watched their world burn. In the following days, the invaders, a species that called themselves the Vrak, began their ground assault. The Vrak were insectoid in appearance, with chitinous exoskeletons and multiple limbs ending in deadly natural weapons. Their technology was as advanced as it was brutal, designed for one purpose: conquest. Zephyrian cities, marvels of crystalline architecture that had stood for thousands of years, crumbled under the onslaught. The people, having never known war, were helpless against the Vrak's efficiently ruthless tactics. Those who weren't killed outright were rounded up, destined for a fate worse than death in the Vrak's slave pits. Alara and what remained of the High Council retreated to a hidden bunker deep beneath the planet's surface. From there, they continued to broadcast their plea, even as hope dwindled with each passing hour. Please, Alara whispered into the transmitter, her once melodious voice now hoarse with despair. Anyone, help us. The distress call raced on, passing by inhabited systems. Many received it, but none answered. The Zephyrians' reputation as pacifists worked against them. Other races, themselves not strong enough to challenge the Vrak, saw no strategic value in coming to their aid. Some even saw an opportunity in the Zephyrians' fall, already planning to scavenge the remains of their once great civilization. But the signal traveled further, reaching the edges of known space. And there, it was heard by a species that many in the galaxy viewed with a mixture of fear and awe. Humans. On Earth, in the upper echelons of the United Earth Defense Force, UEDF, alarms blared as the Zephyrian distress call was received and decrypted. Fleet Admiral Helena Vance, a veteran of Earth's own tumultuous history of wars and near-extinction events, listened to the message with a grim expression. Play it again, she ordered, her weathered face illuminated by holographic displays showing the known location of Zephyria and the surrounding star systems. As Alara's desperate plea echoed through the command center, Vance turned to her assembled staff. Opinions? Colonel Jared Hawkins, head of tactical operations, spoke first. It's well outside our sphere of influence, Admiral. We have no formal ties with the Zephyrians. Intervening could be seen as an act of aggression by other galactic powers. They're civilians, Hawkins, countered Dr. Lydia Chen, the UEDA's chief xenobiologist. From what we know of Zephyrian culture, they're completely defenseless against a military invasion. Vance nodded, her mind already racing through potential scenarios. And if we do nothing, we're letting an entire sapient species face extinction. She paused, then turned to her communication officer. "Any word from the Galactic Council?" "No, Mom," the officer replied. It seems we're the only ones responding." A heavy silence fell over the room. Humanity, still viewed by many older species as upstarts in the galactic community, now faced a monumental decision. Their intervention could save billions of lives, or potentially spark a wider conflict. Admiral Vance straightened, her decision made. "Prep the fleet. We're going to Zephyria." "The whole fleet, Mom?" Hawkins asked, surprised. Vance's eyes hardened. "Whoever these invaders are, they're about to learn why humanity is called the killer apes of the galaxy. We go in hard, we go in fast, and we show no mercy to those who prey on the defenseless." As the command center erupted into action, Vance keyed in a special communications frequency. "Mr. President, we've received a distress call. I'm mobilizing the fleet for a rescue operation." She paused, then added, "Sir, the fate of an entire species hangs in the balance. We may be their only hope." The President's response was swift and unequivocal. "You have full authorization, Admiral. Show them what humanity stands for." Within hours, the massive engines of Earth's warships flared to life. Dreadnoughts, carriers, and swarms of smaller craft formed up, preparing for the jump to hyperspace. As the fleet departed, many on Earth watched the sky, knowing that their sailors and Marines were embarking on a mission that could change the course of galactic history. Aboard the UEDF flagship Olympus, Admiral Vance addressed the fleet. "Men and women of Earth, we go now to the aid of a people we've never met, to fight an enemy we've never seen. But we go because it's right, because it's just, and because if we don't, no one will." The Zephyrians called for help, and humanity answers. Show them, show the galaxy, what that means. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, the Zephyrians huddled in their shelters, unaware that salvation was en route. And aboard their ships, the Vrak continued their assault, oblivious to the storm of vengeance racing towards them across the stars. Humanity was coming, and they were bringing hell with them. Humanity's response. The void of space erupted in a dazzling display of light as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the outskirts of the Zephyrian system. Admiral Vance stood on the bridge of the Olympus, her steely gaze fixed on the holographic display, showing the unfolding catastrophe. "Status report," she barked, her voice cutting through the tense atmosphere on the bridge. Colonel Hawkins, his face grim, responded quickly. "Zephyrian defenses have been completely overwhelmed, ma'am. We're detecting widespread destruction on the planet's surface. The enemy fleet, it's massive. They outnumber us at least 3-1. Vance's jaw tightened. The situation was even worse than they'd anticipated. Life signs on the planet. Dr. Chen, hunched over her console, looked up with a mix of relief and worry. "Still detecting significant Zephyrian populations, Admiral. But they're scattered, mostly in underground shelters. The invaders, the Vrak, they're rounding up survivors. For slave labor or worse," Vance muttered. She'd seen this pattern before, in humanity's own bloody history. Her mind raced, weighing options, calculating risks. They were outnumbered, yes, but humanity had long ago learned that superior numbers didn't always equate to victory. "All ships, battle stations," Vance commanded. "Initiate Operation Thunderbolt." The human fleet sprang into action with practiced precision. Smaller, faster ships darted forward, their advanced stealth systems allowing them to slip past the Vrak's outer sensor perimeter. Larger vessels began to spread out, forming a defensive line between the Vrak Armada and Zephyria. "Ma'am," Hawkins interjected, "the Vrak have detected us. They're moving to engage." Vance nodded. It was time. "All ships, weapons free. Show these bastards what happens when you pick on those who can't fight back." The first shots of the battle lanced across space, brilliant beams of energy and swarms of missiles. The Vrak, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of a new combatant, scrambled to regroup. Their larger ships turned ponderously, bringing their main guns to bear on the human fleet. But Vance had anticipated this. "Now," she ordered. From the belly of the human carriers, swarms of fighters erupted. These weren't ordinary craft. They were the pride of human military technology, piloted by men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment. They darted between the lumbering Vrock capital ships, their advanced weaponry punching through shields and armor alike. On the bridge of the Olympus, Vance watched the battle unfold with calculating eyes. "Colonel, status of our ground teams." Hawkins consulted his display. "First wave has landed, ma'am. They're encountering heavy resistance, but they're making progress towards the largest concentration of Zephyrian survivors." Vance allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 was underway. But she knew the real challenge was yet to come. The element of surprise had given them an edge, but the Vrock still outnumbered them significantly. This wasn't just a battle. It was a race against time. "Admiral," Dr. Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "I'm detecting a transmission from the planet's surface. It's the Zephyrian leadership." "Put it through," Vance ordered, her heart pounding. The holographic display flickered, and the image of First Counselor Alara appeared. The Zephyrian leader looked haggard, her once vibrant scales dulled with stress and fear. But in her eyes, there was a glimmer of hope. "This is First Counselor Alara of Zephyria," she began, her voice trembling. "To the unknown fleet engaging the Vrock, we thank you. But please, our people, they're being taken. The Vrock, they have camps. Horrible places. If you can hear this, please." Vance stepped forward, her face set in determination. "First Counselor, this is Fleet Admiral Helena Vance of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call. Help has arrived." Alara's eyes widened in shock and relief. "Humans? You came." "We came," Vance confirmed. "And we're not leaving until your people are safe, and the Vrock are nothing but a bad memory. Can you transmit the locations of those camps?" As Alara nodded and began relaying information, Vance turned to her staff. "Adjust our ground strategy. Priority is liberating those camps and evacuating civilians. All ships press the attack. We need to keep the Vrock fleet occupied." The battle in space intensified. Human ships, though outnumbered, fought with a ferocity that caught the Vrock off guard. Centuries of conflict had honed humanity's military prowess to a razor's edge, and now that edge was cutting deep into the invaders' forces. On the surface of Zephyria, human marines pushed forward. They were a sight unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. Armored figures moving with lethal grace, their weapons spitting death at the Vrock forces. Where the insectoid invaders had expected to find only cowering prey, they now faced predators fiercer than themselves. In one of the Vrock slave camps, a group of captured Zephyrians huddled in terror as explosions rocked the perimeter. The guards, mandibles clicking in agitation, raised their weapons. But before they could fire, the walls burst inward. Human soldiers poured through the breach, their weapons cutting down the Vrock with surgical precision. A marine sergeant approached the bewildered Zephyrians, his helmet retracting to reveal a reassuring smile. "It's all right," he said, extending a hand. "We're here to get you out." As the rescued Zephyrians were led to safety, similar scenes played out across the planet. Human dropships, escorted by fighters, darted between columns of smoke, extracting civilians and engaging Vrock forces. Back on the Olympus, Admiral Vance watched the shifting tactical display with growing concern. They were making progress, yes, but the Vrock's numbers were beginning to tell. Human ships, though superior in technology and skill, were taking damage. They couldn't keep this up indefinitely. "Ma'am," Hawkins reported, his voice tight, "the Vrock are regrouping. They're bringing in reinforcements from the outer system. At this rate, we'll be overwhelmed in hours." Vance's mind raced. They needed a game-changer, something to turn the tide decisively. Her eyes fell on a blinking icon on the display. The Vrock flagship, a behemoth of a vessel that dwarfed even the largest human ships. "There," she said, pointing. "That's their nerve center. If we can take it out, we might just break their will to fight." Hawkins looked at her incredulously. "Admiral, with respect, that ship is in the heart of their fleet. It's suicide to even approach it." Vance's eyes hardened. "Then we'll need volunteers. Get me a line to the fleet. I have a call to make." As she prepared to address her forces, Vance knew she was about to ask for the ultimate sacrifice. But as she looked at the images coming in from the planet, Zephyrian children being rescued, families reunited, a species being given a second chance at life, she knew it had to be done. The fate of Zephyria, and perhaps the galaxy itself, now hung in the balance. And humanity, the newcomers, the killer apes, were about to show the cosmos what they were truly capable of when pushed to the brink. The counterattack. As the battle raged both in space and on the surface of Zephyria, Admiral Vance's plan to strike at the heart of the Vrak fleet was set into motion. She had called for volunteers for what could only be described as a suicide mission, and the response had been overwhelming. The spirit of self-sacrifice, it seemed, burned bright in the hearts of Earth's defenders. Leading the charge was Commander Sarah Chen, sister of Dr. Lydia Chen, and one of the UEDF's most decorated special operations officers. Her team, a mix of hardened veterans and skilled newcomers, prepared for what might be their final mission aboard the stealth corvette, Shadow Dancer. "Listen up," Chen addressed her team, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Our objective is the Vrak flagship. We go in fast, we go in quiet, and we hit the counterattack." "Listen up," Chen addressed her team, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Our objective is the Vrak flagship. We go in fast, we go in quiet, and we hit them where it hurts. Our mission is to disable their command and control systems, giving our fleet the opening it needs to turn this battle around." The faces before her were grim but determined. Each soldier knew the risks, but also understood the stakes. Humanity's first major engagement with an alien threat wasn't just about saving the Zephyrians. It was about showing the galaxy what humans were made of. As the Shadow Dancer detached from the Olympus, the main human fleet intensified its assault, drawing the Vrak's attention. Cloaked in the latest stealth technology, Chen's ship slipped through the chaotic battlefield, weaving between massive capital ships and swarms of fighters. Approaching the target, the pilot announced, his hand steady on the controls despite the explosions rocking space around them. "Shit. New contact. Vrak patrol, 3 o'clock. Chen's mind raced. Their stealth was good, but not perfect. At this range, they risked detection. "Evasive maneuvers," she ordered. "Maintain course to the flagship." The Shadow Dancer dove, narrowly avoiding a stray missile. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed the Vrak had spotted them, but the patrol moved on, distracted by the larger battle. "We're clear," the pilot reported, relief evident in his voice. "Flagship dead ahead." Chen nodded, turning to her team. "Gear up. We breach in 2 minutes." The Vrak flagship loomed before them, a monstrous construct of alien design. As they approached, the true scale of the vessel became apparent. It was easily 5 times the size of the largest human dreadnought. "Docking clamps engaged," the pilot called out. "We're locked on. Good luck in there." Chen led her team through the airlock, magnetic boots engaging as they stepped onto the alien hull. Using plasma cutters, they quickly carved an entrance into the ship. "Remember," Chen whispered as they entered the dim, alien corridor, "we're not here to fight a war. We're here to end one. Stay focused on the objective." They moved swiftly through the ship, their path guided by intel gathered from previous engagements with Vrak forces. The interior was a maze of chitinous structures and pulsing, organic-looking technology. Suddenly, alarms blared. They had been detected. "Double time," Chen shouted, breaking into a run. "We need to reach the central hub." Vrak warriors poured into the corridors, their insectoid forms skittering across walls and ceilings. The human team fought back with ruthless efficiency, their advanced weaponry proving devastatingly effective in the close quarters. As they battled their way deeper into the ship, Shen couldn't help but reflect on the irony of the situation. Humans, once seen as primitive by much of the galactic community, were now fighting to save a more advanced species from extinction. Finally, they'd reached the central hub, a vast chamber filled with pulsating organic computers. At its center stood a being larger than the others, its carapace adorned with intricate patterns. The Vrak commander. Charges. Now. Chen ordered, her team moving to plant explosives on key systems. The Vrak commander chittered something unintelligible, mandibles clacking in what might have been rage or fear. It lunged at Chen, multiple limbs brandishing weapons. Chen met the attack head-on, her combat training kicking in. She ducked under a sweeping claw, her nano-enhanced muscles allowing her to move with inhuman speed. Her plasma blade found a gap in the commander's armor, sinking deep. As the alien fell, Chen turned to see her team finishing with the charges. "Clear out," she shouted. Back to the ship. They fought their way back through waves of Vrak defenders, the ship shuddering around them as systems began to fail. Reaching the Shadow Dancer, they disengaged just as the first explosions rocked the flagship. "This is Commander Chen," she radioed as they pulled away. "Mission accomplished. Vrak flagship critically damaged. Admiral, the ball's in your court now." On the bridge of the Olympus, Admiral Vance allowed herself a grim smile. "Well done, Commander. All ships, this is it. Concentrate fire on the flagship. Let's finish this." The human fleet moved as one, unleashing a devastating barrage on the crippled Vrak vessel. Without their central command, the Vrak fleet fell into disarray. Ship after ship fell to the coordinated human assault. On the surface of Zephyria, the tide began to turn. Vrak ground forces, cut off from orbital support, found themselves outmatched by the relentless human marines and the increasingly organized Zephyrian resistance. As the Vrak flagship finally succumbed to the onslaught, exploding in a spectacular display visible even from the planet's surface, a cheer went up across the human fleet. But Admiral Vance knew the battle was far from over. The Vrak were on the back foot, yes, but cornered animals were often the most dangerous. "Press the advantage," she ordered. "Drive them out of the system, and get me aligned to the Zephyrian leadership. It's time we started planning for the aftermath." As the human fleet moved to mop up the remaining Vrak forces, the Shadow Dancer docked with the Olympus. Commander Chen and her team, battered but alive, were greeted as heroes. Dr. Lydia Chen rushed to embrace her sister. "You did it," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "You actually did it." Sarah Chen managed a tired smile. "We all did it, but it's not over yet." Indeed, as the immediate threat of the Vrak invasion receded, new challenges loomed. The Zephyrians, a people who had never known war, now faced the daunting task of rebuilding their shattered world. And humanity, having revealed its martial prowess to the galaxy at large, would have to navigate the complex political fallout of their intervention. But for now, as human ships descended to Zephyria's surface bearing aid and medical supplies, there was hope. The Zephyrians, emerging from their shelters, looked to the sky not in fear, but in gratitude. The killer apes of Earth had come, and in doing so, they had not only saved a species, but perhaps changed the course of galactic history. As night fell on Zephyria, the stars shone down on a planet forever changed. The age of innocence was over, but a new era of cooperation and mutual understanding was just beginning. And at the center of it all stood humanity. Protectors, warriors, and now, unexpected saviors of a grateful universe. Sacrifice and triumph. The battle for Zephyria had reached its critical juncture. While the destruction of the Vrak flagship had dealt a severe blow to the invaders, their remaining forces fought with the desperation of those who knew defeat meant annihilation. Admiral Vance, her uniform stained with sweat and her eyes heavy from sleepless nights, stood before a holographic display of the battlefield. "Status report," she demanded, her voice hoarse but unwavering. Colonel Hawkins, equally haggard, responded promptly. "We've pushed the Vrok back to their last stronghold on the planet's southern continent, Ma'am. But they've dug in deep. Our ground forces are facing heavy resistance." Dr. Chen interjected, her face grim. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual energy readings from the Vrok position. It looks like they're powering up some kind of doomsday device." A hush fell over the bridge. The implications were clear. The Vrok, facing defeat, were prepared to destroy everything rather than surrender. Vance's mind raced. They had come too far, sacrificed too much, to let it end like this. "Options?" she asked, her gaze sweeping across her senior staff. For a moment, silence reigned. Then, a quiet voice spoke up. "I might have an idea, Ma'am." All eyes turned to Lieutenant Zora Kemp, a young officer who had distinguished herself during the space battle. "Speak freely, Lieutenant," Vance encouraged. Kemp stepped forward, her youthful features set in determination. "The Olympus's main gun. If we overload it and fire at just the right moment, we might be able to take out the Vrok stronghold and their device in one shot." Hawkins frowned. "The energy required. It would fry our systems. We'd be dead in the water. Worse," Chief Engineer Ramos added, "the feedback could breach the reactor containment. We'd have minutes, maybe seconds, to evacuate before the ship goes critical." Vance considered the proposal, weighing the risks against the alternative. Watching Zephyria burn after all they had done to save it, her decision was made in an instant. "Do it," she ordered. "Begin evacuation procedures. I'll stay behind to ensure the shot is fired." Protests erupted from her staff, but Vance silenced them with a raised hand. "This isn't up for debate. The Olympus is just a ship. Zephyria is a world. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one." As the evacuation order went out, Vance opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral Vance. In a few moments, the Olympus will fire its main gun in a decisive strike against the Vrok. The energy required for this attack will leave us vulnerable. All ships are ordered to provide cover fire and be prepared to rescue survivors." She paused, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. "It has been the highest honor of my life to serve with you all. Today, we've shown the galaxy what humanity stands for. We came to the aid of a people we'd never met, facing an enemy we'd never fought, because it was the right thing to do. Whatever happens next, remember this moment. Remember why we fight." As the bridge cleared, only a skeleton crew remained to oversee the final attack. Vance took her place at the helm, her hand steady on the controls. "Energy levels at maximum," Ramos reported from engineering. "Firing solution locked in. We're ready, Admiral." Vance took a deep breath. For Earth, for Zephyria, for all who stand against tyranny. Fire. The Olympus shuddered as its main gun discharged, a lance of pure energy cutting through space towards the Vrok stronghold. On the planet's surface, human and Zephyrian forces alike shielded their eyes as day turned to night, then to blinding day again. When the light faded, the Vrok stronghold was gone, replaced by a massive crater. The doomsday device, whatever it had been, was no more. But the cost was high. The Olympus, its systems fried, began to list in orbit. Alarms blared as the reactor containment failed. "All hands, abandon ship," Vance ordered, even as she worked to keep the dying vessel stable long enough for her crew to escape. As escape pods jettisoned from the stricken flagship, the Vrok forces, leaderless and demoralized, began to surrender en masse. The battle for Zephyria was over. From the bridge of a nearby cruiser, Commander Sarah Chen watched in horror as the Olympus, the pride of Earth's fleet, exploded in a brilliant flash. "Admiral Vance," she whispered, a tear rolling down her cheek. "Thank you." In the days that followed, as the dust settled on Zephyria, the full impact of humanity's intervention became clear. The Zephyrians, a people who had never known war, had been saved from extinction. But more than that, they had been changed. First Counselor Alara, addressing a joint assembly of Zephyrians and humans, spoke of this transformation. We called for help, and humanity answered. They taught us that peace is precious, but it must sometimes be defended. We will rebuild, and we will remember. The sacrifices made here will not be in vain. As news of the battle spread across the galaxy, other races watched in amazement. The humans, long dismissed as primitive newcomers, had revealed themselves to be formidable warriors and, more importantly, principled defenders of the weak. But with this new respect came new challenges. Some races viewed humanity's martial prowess with fear, others with envy. The political landscape of the galaxy was shifting, and Earth now found itself at the center of it all. For the soldiers, marines, and sailors who had fought for Zephyria, however, such concerns seemed distant. They had done what they believed was right, against impossible odds. As they helped the Zephyrians rebuild, a bond was forming between the two species, one forged in fire and tempered by shared sacrifice. The statue of Admiral Helena Vance, erected in the heart of the Zephyrian capital, stood as a testament to this new alliance. Its plaque, written in both human and Zephyrian script, bore a simple message. To those who answered the call, you came as strangers, you leave as heroes. We will never forget. As the sun set on Hfy Zephyria, casting long shadows across a landscape scarred by war, but alive with hope, the universe held its breath. The age of humanity had truly begun. Aftermath and reflection. 5 years after the Battle of Zephyria, the galaxy was a changed place. The ripples of humanity's decisive intervention had spread far and wide, reshaping alliances, challenging long-held beliefs, and ushering in a new era of interstellar politics. On Zephyria itself, the scars of war were slowly healing. Where once crystalline spires had reached for the stars, new structures now stood, a blend of traditional Zephyrian architecture and human engineering. The planet had become a symbol of resilience and cooperation. Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen following her promotion, stood before the great memorial in Zephyria's capital. The names of every human and Zephyrian who had fallen in the battle were etched into its shimmering surface. At its center, larger than life, stood the figure of Admiral Helena Vance. She would have hated this, you know, the voice said beside her. Chen turned to see Alara, the Zephyrian leader, her iridescent scales shimmering in the sunlight. Chen smiled softly. Probably. Vance was never one for monuments. She believed actions spoke louder than statues. And yet, Alara mused, sometimes we need reminders of those actions, to inspire us, to challenge us to be better. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a human diplomatic delegation, led by the newly appointed Earth ambassador to Zephyria, Dr. Lydia Chen, Sarah's sister. Sorry we're late, Lydia said, embracing her sister before nodding respectfully to Alara. The council session ran long. Again, Sarah raised an eyebrow. Trouble? Lydia sighed, her expression a mix of frustration and determination. The usual. Some races are pushing for restrictions on human military expansion. They're calling us a destabilizing influence on galactic peace. Alara chittered, a sound that humans had learned was the Zephyrian equivalent of a snort. Peace built on the willful ignorance of suffering is no peace at all. We learned that lesson the hard way. Indeed, the Zephyrians had undergone a profound cultural shift since the Vrak invasion. While still dedicated to scientific pursuits and peaceful exploration, they had also developed a strong defense force, trained and equipped with human assistance. It's not all bad news, Lydia continued. Our alliance with the Zephyrians has inspired other races. The Talari Confederation has expressed interest in joint military exercises, and even the notoriously isolationist Korean are opening diplomatic channels. As they walked through the bustling streets of the capital, the group couldn't help but marvel at the changes. Humans and Zephyrians worked side by side, rebuilding and innovating. In orbit, a joint defense fleet stood vigilant, a mix of sleek human warships and newly constructed Zephyrian vessels. Their destination was a new facility on the outskirts of the city, the Vance Institute for Interstellar Cooperation. Part think tank, part military academy, it represented the future that both humans and Zephyrians hoped to build. As they entered the main auditorium, filled with eager cadets of both species, Sarah felt a swell of pride. This was Vance's true legacy, not just victory in battle, but the forging of bonds that transcended the boundaries of worlds. Alara stepped up to the podium, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. 5 years ago, we faced extinction. We were aftermath and reflection. Alara stepped up to the podium, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. 5 years ago, we faced extinction. We were a people unprepared for the horrors of war, believing our scientific achievements would shield us from the darker aspects of the universe. We were wrong. The audience, a mix of humans and Zephyrians, listened in rapt attention. But in our darkest hour, when all seemed lost, we learned a crucial lesson. We learned that true strength lies not just in knowledge, but in the courage to act on behalf of others. We learned this from humanity. Alara's gaze swept across the room, lingering on the human faces. Our saviors came not as conquerors, but as guardians. They fought not for glory or conquest, but because it was right. They showed us that being a warrior doesn't mean abandoning peace. It means being willing to defend it. As Alara continued her speech, Sarah's mind wandered to the challenges that lay ahead. The galaxy was still adjusting to humanity's emergence as a major power. Some races viewed Earth with newfound respect, while others eyed them warily, fearful of their military prowess. The Vrok, thoroughly defeated at Zephyria, had retreated to their home systems, but intelligence reports suggested they were rebuilding, possibly planning revenge. And there were whispers of other threats lurking in the dark spaces between the stars, ancient races and forgotten empires stirring from long slumbers. Sarah's musings were interrupted as Alara called her to the stage. Taking her place at the podium, Sarah looked out at the sea of faces, human and Zephyrian, united in purpose. When I first set foot on Zephyria, Sarah began, it was as a soldier, coming to the aid of a people I'd never met. Today, I stand here not just as an admiral, but as a friend, an ally, and a believer in the future we're building together. She paused, gathering her thoughts. The Battle of Zephyria taught us all valuable lessons. To the Zephyrians, it showed the importance of being prepared to defend one's values. To us humans, it proved that our strength lies not just in our ability to fight, but in our willingness to stand up for others. But perhaps the most important lesson, Sarah continued, her voice growing passionate, is one the entire galaxy is learning. That we are stronger together than apart. That the differences between our species are far outweighed by what we have in common, our curiosity, our capacity for compassion, and our drive to create a better future for all. As Sarah spoke, she could see the impact of her words. The young cadets, human and Zephyrian alike, sat straighter, their eyes shining with determination. They were the future, the generation that would shape this new era of interstellar cooperation. The challenges ahead are many, Sarah acknowledged. There are those who fear the changes we represent, who cling to old prejudices and isolationist ideologies. There are threats, both known and unknown, that we must be prepared to face. Her voice grew stronger, filled with conviction. But I stand here today filled with hope, because I've seen what we can accomplish when we stand together. I've seen the courage of the Zephyrian people, rising from the ashes of near extinction to forge a new destiny. I've seen the best of humanity, willing to risk everything for a people they'd never met, simply because it was the right thing to do. As Sarah concluded her speech, the auditorium erupted in applause. Humans and Zephyrians rose as one, their cheers a testament to the bonds forged in adversity and strengthened in peace. Later that evening, as the twin moons of Zephyria rose over the rebuilt city, Sarah stood on a balcony with her sister Lydia and Alara. They watched as a mixed group of human and Zephyrian children played in a nearby park, their laughter carried on the warm night breeze. "You know," Lydia mused, "before the Battle of Zephyria, many races dismissed us as primitive, violent, the killer apes of the galaxy." Alara nodded, her scales shimmering in the moonlight. "And now," Sarah replied, a smile playing on her lips, "they're starting to understand. Yes, we can be fierce warriors when needed, but it's not violence that defines us. It's our capacity for compassion, our willingness to stand up for what's right, even at great cost to ourselves." "You've taught us much," Alara said softly, "about courage, about resilience, but perhaps most importantly, about hope. You've shown the galaxy that no matter how dark things seem, there's always a chance for a better tomorrow, if we're brave enough to fight for it." As they stood there, looking out over the city that had become a symbol of interspecies cooperation, Sarah felt a profound sense of purpose. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, conflicts, perhaps even new wars to face. But she was confident that together, humans and Zephyrians, and perhaps one day many other races, would meet those challenges head-on. They would explore the stars not just with curiosity, but with courage and compassion. The killer apes had shown the galaxy a different kind of strength, and in doing so, they had not just saved a single species, but possibly changed the course of galactic history forever. As the night deepened and stars twinkled overhead, the same stars that had brought two vastly different species together, Sarah Chen, Admiral of the United Earth Defense Force and hero of Zephyria, allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. They had answered the call, and in doing so, they had written a new chapter in the story of the cosmos, a chapter of hope, of bravery, and of the enduring power of extending a helping hand to those in need, no matter how distant or different they might be. The battle was over, but the true adventure, the forging of a united, cooperative galactic community, was just beginning. And humanity, once the newcomers, the outsiders, now stood at the forefront of this grand endeavor. The universe, vast and full of wonders, awaited. And together, they would face whatever it held, not just as survivors, not just as allies, but as family.